So, hey, Mike, how's it going?
I'm doing good. How are you, Don? Andrea,
Good,
how are you?
good, good. Hey, so we're going to talk about COLA increases for Social Security today. So, what is it about Social Security COLA increases and for 2024, and why is that so important for retirees?
Yeah, it's interesting. I think this year in particular, for some reason, it's gathered a lot of press. We kind of blocked off some time actually last week just to talk to individuals or talk to the press or media about some of the changes or proposed at the time. We thought the cost of living adjustment was going to be, and certainly came in, I guess, as predicted, a little bit lower. But it is always interesting how it gathers so much interest and gathers so much curiosity. And I think that's really a great opportunity to share and communicate with their clients and make sure they're up to speed on some of the changes. So, with that said, the cost of living adjustment came in at 3.2%. Certainly a little bit lower than last year. Last year was, I think, 8.7%. So, certainly a lot to digest with that. I think it's maybe good and bad news. If you could look at it and say, well, okay, it's a decrease, which is never good, but um, maybe that's an inflection point, or maybe that's a recognition that hopefully things are getting a little more under control, and maybe we're seeing inflation start to scale back. Now, we don't have a crystal ball, right? So it's tough to tell, but maybe those are some positive signs. The opposite side of that is, gosh, my check's a little bit lower, but it was dramatically higher in 2023. So I'm still continuing on a positive trend. And now I think there's an opportunity for me to, really think about my expenses, think about, how this is going to help me or hopefully help me in retirement. So I think it's kind of a double-edged sword. Anytime it goes up or goes down or is announced, I think it's an opportunity to communicate with folks and just share with them. I think first and foremost, there's no guarantee. Cost of living adjustments are not automatic. I think I talked to a lot of folks and they just assume it's, going to keep up with the cost of living or, kind of inflationary times, but there really is no guarantee. In fact, I guess it was 2009 and 2010, they were zeros back to back. Low inflationary time then, but it is interesting to see that. And then you compare that with the late 80s, where we saw incredible numbers, 14% cost of living adjustment. That's great if you're getting that check, but it's also very scary when you think about it. Gosh, the government's crediting my check that high. There's got to be a lot of things going on. So I think it's just an interesting topic as a whole, and I think it proves how many folks have questions and concerns about it.
So, Mike, you're out meeting with financial professionals and their clients pretty often. Are clients aware of the COLA, the cost of living adjustment increase? Is it something that advisors should be bringing up, or are clients very in tuned and aware to what's going on with it?
I think it's both. I think they are very in tuned. I think they're very concerned. They kind of wait and are anticipating the number. I also think, again, it's an opportunity for financial professionals to really communicate with clients and share with them this information and what it means going forward. As we know, we always communicate at Hartford Funds. We're big fans of building a team and having a financial professional, tax professional to share with clients this information and then hopefully put them on the best path for the years following to think about retirement. It's not a year by year thing, as we know, right? It's a 20 or 30-year stretch. So it's more of a marathon as opposed to maybe a sprint. So it's important to look and see what your cost of living adjustments are. But I think it's more important to make sure you build a team, think about that team and all the resources there to help communicate ideas like this and stay in front of me with this information. So if I hear a number, again, I may get panicked or I may get excited, right? What does that mean in the long run? And I think that's where the financial professional can really help.
So, do you see financial professionals as kind of responding to questions, or are you suggesting that they get ahead of it and actually be bringing up this increase to their clients when they're meeting with them on a daily basis?
Yeah, I mean, again, not to sound like an attorney, right? But both, I think. I think, for those that maybe are concerned and you've talked to them in the past, and especially for years where there's been zeros and they've been panicked, those are probably people you want to pick up the phone, let them know the cost of living adjust. But then more importantly, kind of give them some information about other things. I think these adjustments really do stress the opportunity that there are other sources of income, or hopefully other sources of income in retirement. So, what can we do with those other sources to maybe outpace expected inflation to keep you on track. So I think there's an opportunity to connect with folks. If those folks are very concerned about the changes, you want to kind of quell some of their fears and, listen to their, concerns and then try and put them in the best position going forward. But I think there's also the opportunity to say now's the time to really think about those other sources of income. Are we doing everything we can? Let's make sure now going forward, and you probably have already done that as a financial professional, but making sure we stay well diversified and continuing to focus on that. And I think sometimes when there's maybe lower inflationary times, maybe sometimes we get off track, or it's just human nature, right? Sometimes we get distracted. Maybe now's the opportunity to sit down with some of those clients, reach out to them, and then reassure them that this is why we are well diversified to hopefully outpace inflation or keep
Okay.
up at least.
And so, what percentage ballpark is Social Security percentage-wise as a percentage of the average retiree's income these days? Is it like 50%, less than that? I'm sure it varies, but they really do tend to focus on this COLA increase. And
Right.
maybe do they think about the rest of their portfolio as much?
They probably
Keeping up with
don't,
inflation. Okay.
unfortunately. I think
Yeah.
the average has been 30 to 40%.
Okay.
Their retirement income coming from Social Security. That's probably scaled down a little bit, but I think there's the opportunity, right, to make sure that folks understand that 50, 60, 70% that is outside of Social Security. That's really the asset you control. So if I think about my sources of income in retirement, maybe a third's coming from Social Security. That other two-thirds is coming from somewhere else. Maybe it's a pension, but as we know, pensions are kind of a foreign term nowadays. So it's probably their own personal savings. That's the part you do control, and that's the part you really have some flexibility, the opportunity to talk to your financial professional. I would also include my tax professional in the conversation. If we're going to be financially well diversified, have we thought about it from a tax perspective and making sure we're tax diversified? When you think about keeping up or trying to outpace inflation, one of the things that kills you all the time is taxation. So it's great that I'm getting a 3% increase or 3.2, but gosh, that may push me into a higher tax bracket, or I may pay more from a Social Security perspective. I may pay taxes or an increased amount of taxes on my Social Security benefit. So am I doing everything I can from a tax perspective? And that's where I think it's opportunity to bring in both parties, make sure we're talking to each other. Maybe there's some things we can adjust. Maybe it's a Roth, maybe it's tax-free income. Everybody's different percentage wise, but are we doing everything from a tax perspective that we can? I think if you get the financial side of it, the tax side of it set up, I think you'd be in good shape.
Okay. So you're saying that if somebody were to get bumped into a higher tax bracket, there are some things that financial professionals or tax professionals can do to avoid that additional taxation.
Yeah, I guess what I'm saying is, let's think about it now. So we know there's a cost of living adjustment coming. It's certainly not, as high as we'd like it to be or as high as it's been in years, but let's use that as an opportunity to have a conversation and make sure we think about our investments from a tax perspective. And for many, they really haven't thought about that. So maybe take a step back, think about your sources of income, maybe do an inventory, make sure, everybody that you're working with understands everything that's available to you from a percentage or from an income perspective, and then let's figure out what's the most efficient way to take those monies. Maybe there was an opportunity to take some money out of an IRA. Maybe that's not the most tax advantaged way. Maybe we want to tap into some tax-free income if we have that invested with us, or maybe there's an opportunity now to shift some of our income over, or some of our retirement income over to some type of tax-free or some type of more efficient tax distribution schedule. So I think now's an opportunity to take this as a kind of a wake-up call, if you will, or maybe a level set or something to say, let's think about it from a tax perspective. Are we doing everything we can? Are we exploring all different angles? And again, everybody's makeup is different, but having taxable, tax deferred, and tax free, I think that's taught us over time. It's an important feature to have.
Gotcha. And when do these increases go into effect, Mike? When do
I
when do the
believe they'll
checks
go
start
in.
rising?
Yeah, I believe they'll go in the beginning of the year.
Okay.
There is some back and forth for those that have already filed. They'll be getting that adjustment in 2024.
Gotcha. Andrea, any questions you want to throw in here?
I don't have any.
Okay, no problem. Mike, any other topics that you want to hit related to COLA that I didn't ask?
No, I think, anytime you see anything that's announced or changed, I think that just reinforces the fact that you want to work with a good team. You want to have a good financial professional, somebody that understands the market, understands what's going on. Maybe has some other clients that have some concerns as well. So, there's that opportunity to kind of share your concerns, ask questions, get the right information, and kind of put you in the best position. I think when it comes to Social Security, I'm a fan of having a team. Don't go it alone. It's too confusing. Even those of us that spend a lot of time looking at Social Security will tell you there's so many moving parts to it. It gets very confusing, gets overwhelming. So SSA.gov is a great resource if individuals have questions. But more importantly, working with somebody that knows me, knows my spouse, my family, what my goals are, I think that's such a valuable resource. And that's that good financial professional.
Yeah, and financial professionals have probably worked with a lot of other clients who make mistakes, and they can kind of see what clients, how they can really mess up some choices when it comes to Social Security and otherwise, correct?
Right, exactly. Yeah, and from a financial perspective, why not, take this as an opportunity because there has been something announced. If you haven't talked to somebody in a while, maybe it's a great opportunity to just drop them a line. Hey, I was just thinking about you. Wanted to talk to you, just make sure you knew about this. Don't get too crazy. Don't, get too excited about it or, get too upset about it. This is kind of what we planned for. And these are things that we've seen over time. And here's how we're going to kind of manage. And again, keeping that long-term perspective, I think is always so important. And that's the strength of a financial professional to keep things, get you back on track and keep you thinking long term.
That's awesome. Well, Mike, thanks again. That was really interesting today. So thanks for your time.
Great. Thank you guys. Appreciate it.
All information provided is for informational and educational purposes only and is not intended to provide investment, tax, accounting, or legal advice. As with all matters of investment, tax, or legal nature, you and your client should consult with a qualified tax or legal professional regarding your or your client's specific legal or tax situation as applicable. The proceeding is not intended to be a recommendation or advice. This information does not take into account the specific investment objectives, tax, and financial condition of any specific person. This information has been prepared from sources believed reliable, but the accuracy and completeness of the information cannot be guaranteed. Investing involves risk, including the possible loss of principal. Diversification does not ensure a profit or protect against a loss in a declining market.